Hey, it's Brooklyn Lou the Skeptic, former evangelical, now an atheist. Been reflecting on my journey out of fundamentalist evangelical Christianity and some of the key turning points in my life and my journey out of that religious belief system. And it all started for me with the Genesis account, the book of Genesis. You see, I was the type of Christian who believed every word in the Bible was the word of God, or at least inspired by God. But I took every word of it very seriously, and I thought it contained nothing but truth. When I started to study evolution for the very first time, I realized that there was actually a mountain of evidence for evolution. It wasn't just a fantasy of scientists, and it wasn't just something pieced together as some sort of a conspiracy theory. It actually was based on mountains of evidence across all different scientific disciplines. And I realized that thinking that the book of Genesis was to be taken literally just was actually ridiculous. That was probably the first thing that happened. That didn't make me an atheist. Of course not. I wanted to be a Christian. My identity was in being a Christian. So I held on and I held on. But one doctrine after another started crumbling as I did a self-study where I studied these things independently and I looked at the Bible differently. And when I looked at the canon, that was a biggie. You see, the Bible wasn't a book given by a God. It was a book written by men. Now, I know you can say as an evangelical, well, these men were inspired by God. Yeah. But you still got to take it darn seriously. And when you read some of the things in the Bible, they're just preposterous. So I came to understand that the canon was purely human. The Bible was put together by men and also compiled together in its current form by men. And there were many other books that were not included. And what was included or not included was decided by men. Seeing this, I started to think about, can I really trust men to get it right? Men to totally have a perfect book compiled with just the exact books that I needed to base my life upon. And of course, the Catholic Bible has more books than the Protestant Bible. And there's all that. Well, which Bible is the perfect one? And after doing some critical analysis of the Bible, I realized that the Bible was far from perfect. And our understanding of the Bible, and even who wrote these books, was far from perfect. And there was no real consensus. So the book started having less impact in my life. I realized that I had to think for myself and that I really could trust my own thoughts, because my own thoughts were just as good as anybody else's. And when I finally gave up Christianity, after years of trying to hold on to it, you see, I wanted to hold on to it. I didn't want to be an atheist. That was the last thing was on my mind. Being an atheist was frowned upon in the circles that I was in, and it still is frowned upon in the circles that I am in. But I decided to trust my own thoughts. And in doing so, I gave up the authoritarian lifestyle that I was under. Now, I say authoritarian because it really is a master-slave mentality. When you're a fundamentalist Christian, you are a servant of Jesus Christ. And that Jesus Christ is really just in your mind. It's not a Jesus you see. It's not a Jesus that is actually detectable. You don't audibly hear Jesus. You just think about him. And that's your personal relationship. I gave that up, and I realized what it was actually like to trust in my own thoughts. Yeah, trust in your own thoughts. You don't need to be a slave of someone else's thoughts. I don't need anymore to be a slave to the thoughts of a character in a book or the thoughts of a religion or the thoughts of holy men. Nope, I am free. And when we have freedom of thought, that is one of the most fundamental human rights that we have as human beings. We can think for ourselves. And when we box ourselves into a belief system, the box of a belief system, when we box ourselves in like that, we're willingly giving up our freedom of thought. We must think like the group thinks. We must go to other men to get advice. We must consult with other holy people. And we must keep our minds in a circle that says the same thing over and over and over again. When you're really free to think for yourself, it's a wonderful thing. And I wouldn't give that up for anything in the world anymore. I want to think for myself, and I'm happy thinking for myself. And after leaving Christianity, it was hard, but I really feel like I'm a better person today than I was when I was a fundamentalist Christian. I see people differently. I'm willing to be tolerant of people who have different thoughts than I do. I'm a better person, and I'm a happier person. So, if you're considering leaving religion, start thinking for yourself. Don't be a person who must look to other people to tell you how to think and what to think, but actually think for yourself. And that freedom to think for yourself is something that is absolutely priceless. So until next time, think rational, be happy, and be comfortable with who you are and your own thoughts.